What's up, guys? I'm Mike. I'm alcoholic. How's everybody doing? Everybody doing good? Yeah. Too blessed to be stressed. All right, let's pray. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. All right, this is the third week in the 12-step workshop. By this time, most of you, I'm guessing, have taken your second steps. Who did that? Who took the time this week to go out and read their work to God? Bill? How'd that go for you, buddy? We'll say that again? Yeah, right on. Good. Anybody else? What the?
I felt free. I felt free at last. Knowing that he's in charge and I'm not.
Right on. Thanks, Chris. Anybody else? I would encourage you, that's the work in the second step from the big book, and it's pretty important that you do that. I hate to even move on if you guys didn't do it. It's kind of a tough. Say that again? What'd you say? You did it? How'd it go? It was all right? Yeah. So I would highly encourage you guys to take that opportunity to take your second steps and the work that you wrote there and the honesty and authenticity that you're able to put into that, the more you'll get out of it, I'm sure. It's been said before that when somebody mentions the word God, what comes to your mind might probably be the most important thing in your life. And so if you don't clear away those prejudices and old ideas and things you believe and things you don't believe about God out of the way, it just becomes more of an obstacle between you and God. It really does. And so enabled to be able to start with a clean slate, no matter how long you've been sober, that's the magic in it. No matter how long we've been sober, we can resubmit to the work and have a brand new experience. Because a lot of us who's been sober for a while, we fall into that same trap as I'm going to stay sober off of my last year's experience, and it gets weak and it gets watered down and it gets heavy and it gets pressed by our own selfishness. And so the only thing that I know, there's a guy named Harry Tebow, and he wrote a lot of literature about what happens when we're sober for a length of time. And what happens is our ego resurfaces. And our ego and our alcoholism learns new tricks to try to trick us back to the drink. And it'll use the spiritual tools that we've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous or wherever you've learned them at, that worked for you so well last year. It'll start eating away at those and manipulating them and tricking you and use them against you. And so the only solution that I know of for myself that's been able to overcome all of my old ideas and my past experiences, which are the noose around my neck, is to have a new experience, right? And so there's prayers that are like, the set-aside prayer, and there's some really cool things that we can take advantage of, but I highly encourage you to have a new experience with the step work while you're here. Don't miss out on that. Do the work. You can come listen to me. If I thought you listening to me was going to change, I'd go around town with the bullhorn, down Arlington Street and talk all night. You know what I mean? I don't think that's going to do nobody no good, but do the work will. Go ahead, Bill.
So I was looking back at the very first time that I did this, and like 5 things I was willing to give up to now. How the difference, today when I'm not willing to give up.
Yeah.
Versus back then. So yeah, this, I had to push myself to dream bigger this time. It's not just on the non-human elements, I had to really put in effort, dream big.
Yes.
Push myself to think even bigger than the last time I did it. And, like Chris was saying, it's free. It's liberating.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bill. When you write down your opposite of the bedevilments, which is what Bill's describing, if you dream big, let's go overboard with it. Having problems with personal relationships. I've had great personal relationships, amazing friendships, and loyal ones, and spiritual ones, and godly ones, and ones that hold me accountable. What I found is that no matter how big I've dreamed in the opposites of the bedevilments, every single time those have always come true. Every time, without fail. So by the time I get through some 4-step work and get up around amends and making, doing 10th and 11th step, those things always come true. So don't, I would hate for you to miss out on that. It would be like there's a bag of free money and everybody's just sitting there not getting none. And so get your money. You know what I mean? Get what you got coming. If you had any idea, if we all were able to comprehend how much God loves us individually, it'd blow our minds. It'd just blow our minds. And I think we're going to kind of try to take that course today as we navigate through the third step, is a lot of times that's what holds us back from having a personal and intimate closeness or constant contact with God, is that I think that maybe he don't love me, or I think that maybe he's far away, or I may think that I'm not that important, or whatever. All those things should come out in that second step work, so you can have a chance at that encounter, at that relationship, especially going into a third step. It makes it a lot easier for me to go get down on my knees and pray the third step prayer and give my will and my life to God. I'm a little bit more excited about it. I'm a little bit more, there's an excitement to it because I have gotten clear of all that crap in the second step. Now, I can still pray that prayer, and I can still pray with all my heart, but just like my very first experience with this is that the things I believe and don't believe about God don't change God, they change me. And so if I think that God don't love me, then how much time am I going to spend with him? If I think God's far away, then am I going to really cast my cares on him? If I think God's going to punish me, am I going to confess my sins to him or do 10th step with my sponsor and my brothers? I'm probably not, because I think God's going to punish me over it. And so until I have that experience with God, which, to each your own by all means, and we do have that opportunity for your own understanding. But there's a graceful God that's loving and powerful and everywhere at all times, and no matter what I got going, he got stuff going on in Japan and Canada and Iran and all these different things going on in the world, and no matter what he has going on at any given moment, at any given day, he wants to be with me. He wants to spend some time with me. He wants a relationship with me. There's a book, and it's called Purpose Driven Life. If you ever get a chance to read that book, it's a very powerful book. But in the opening chapter, it says that, what's our purpose? And we all say, what's my purpose? You know what I mean? And it goes in to say that our purpose, that God created us for one purpose, and one purpose is to be in relationship with him. And out of the abundance of that relationship comes all the other stuff. The abundant life, the helping people, the, getting a little bit ahead. We all going to face troubles and things like that in life. But if I think God's not close and he don't love me when trouble comes, which way am I going to turn? I'm going to turn back inward again, back to managing. I got to figure it out because God don't got me. And then what happens is we actually surrender ourselves to our problems, and we surrender ourselves to our situations, and we surrender ourselves to whatever's going on in life, the busyness of it, instead of surrendering to that which has power over those things. And it's so very easy to do, especially with an alcoholic mind. It's almost without effort. We just do it. We just I got to figure it out. This is going on. I got to deal with it. Boom, boom. And then everybody knows, to some degree, everybody in here has experienced this quote: when I manage, I damage. But when life's happening and the money's funny and the relationships are awry and things are going on, and we're so hyper-focused on that because we've gotten away from that relationship. And so I would highly, if I could beg you, I would beg you to take the second step exercise. So very powerful, very powerful. When I first did it, I told you my experience with it is I was at a little chapel at the Mayflower downtown, and I've been saved hundreds of times and baptized 10 times or 8 times or something like that, and memorized Bible verses and been to church and all those different things. There's nothing wrong. I'm not hating on the church. I'm a member of a church, but I thought, like, if I wasn't perfect, that I wasn't getting no blessing. And if I didn't do good, I really believe that I had to demonstrate for God what I can do instead of allowing God to demonstrate through me what he could do. And I always got wrapped up in that because I just couldn't be good enough. And I couldn't fit in. That idea of God is so small, I couldn't fit in. It was too small for me to fit in. And so God would get left aside, and I have to do it myself. And so the other idea is the selfishness that we possess as alcoholics is astronomical. And what we'll try to do is, because we're so arrogant and so egotistical, we will try to practice spiritual principles in our human strength. The greatest group of people who tries to practice spiritual principles in their human strength is us. I will try to forgive, and I will try to overcome fear, and I will try to be caring and thoughtful and kind and do all these things in my human strength. And what happens is, most of the time I'm not able to get away with it, not for long, or if I do something and think I got away with it, then guess what happens? My head gets big and I beat my chest and I think I did something worth a while. Big book is very clear. I'm supposed to allow God, I'm supposed to be a channel. I'm supposed to allow God to demonstrate through me what he can do. And if I don't give God access to me, it's going to be very difficult for me to do that. And how I open up that door, how I allow God to access me, is going to be in authenticity. If I believe weird things about God, or if I don't believe things about God, it's really going to mess me up. If I have prejudice, I've been in the church. I mean, you guys, I've been in so much, and one of the things that came up, and I hesitate to tell you these things, but maybe it'll help. That I said, what are some of the things you don't believe about God? I don't believe Jesus came back from the dead. I never seen no one come back from the dead before. And I said, God, it's hard to believe. I want to believe, but that's hard for me to believe. And I was so afraid to admit that because I thought I was getting swallowed up. Lightning, something bad was going to happen. And so I had, and I found out in that exercise that me just being honest with God about that, that's all he wanted the whole time. I did have a measure of faith. There's even a Bible verse that says, God, I believe, help my unbelief. So he understands. And so to act all pious and arrogant and big-headed like I just got some great faith is a lie. It's a damn lie. And each and every one of us in here as alcoholics, we all got some measure of that, some self going on, or you wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't go to meetings. We wouldn't sponsor people. We'd keep doing it. And the longer that you're sober, what you'll see is your alcoholism and your ego resurface over and over and over and over and over again. And that relationship with God is a journey. There is no plateau and there's no destination. The destination is the path. Just get on the path and try to stay on the path is the goal. But I walk down the path and I look to the right and there's the money and I got to worry about it and I jump into damn bushes. And I'm all hung up in the bushes, and then I got to call somebody for help. Get me out of these damn bushes, right? Or relationships or whatever, kids, work, all these different things. I think, and to some degree, in my opinion, in my experience, it seems like every single thing in life is a distraction to keep me from my purpose, and that's to be in relationship with God, if I let it be. The money and all the blessings and the cars and the hobbies and all these different things that I look at them more than I look at God. And as soon as I do that, I start sinking. And so that's another important reason why this is a we program. And I know that if you have an authentic relationship with the Creator, then you can have authentic relationship with your peers. And we live in a society where that's tough. And a lot of times we settle for shallow, distant, you don't tell me nothing about what I'm doing wrong, and I won't tell you nothing, and we won't hold each other accountable, and we'll just be buds, and we'll just walk off the damn cliff together. And so like any relationship, any family, you're going to have disputes, and I'm going to get mad at you, and you're going to get mad at me, but the program gives us wonderful principles to be able to navigate that. And my sponsor was big on saying, we're no longer having arrangements. Now we're having relationships. And I am 100% responsible for my relationships. And some have been wonderful, and some of them have been tough, and some of them have been seasonal, and so forth and so on. But with God's help, I've tried my very best to have authentic relationships. It's very important to me. Very important, because I wasn't born on an island. Well, I'm going to live around a bunch of people and keep them. That's how it is in prison. Stay away from me. I'll give you the penitentiary cold shoulder. And I do that out here because of the things I've done in my alcoholism or maybe some trauma that you may have dealt with, but God is bigger than that. And once again, I want to encourage you guys to please go somewhere spiritual. If you can't get nowhere spiritual because your schedule's too busy, go to the bathroom or your bedroom or your living room or your backyard when it's sunny out, and just tell God about all those things that you wrote down. God, I believe this, and I don't believe this, and I'm prejudiced against this. Have that talk with God. And a lot of times I have people do this second step, and they've termed it, they said, I'm going to read, it's my letter to God. They've termed it, I'm going to do this letter. That's how they say it when they talk, when they share their experience. It says they wrote a letter to God. And that's pretty much what it is. It's pretty much what it is. Don't miss out on that. Don't miss out. I'm not really, I remember Bill, it's funny that you say that because I remember we were at St. Thomas back then when you were coming around and you had a pretty powerful experience. I remember, and then the third step, I remember that. You said the whole chapel was shaking. You remember that? I want you guys to have that same experience. I want the whole church to crumble down. You know what I mean? I really do. And we'll do that today. We're going to take our third steps today. I don't want to hold nobody back, but please do your second steps. Okay, Chris, you got your hand up real quick?
Would you mind explaining to some of these beginners? You know, sometimes we be talking about that ocean and the thimble. I don't know if any of these beginners know anything about that. Would you mind kindly explaining that to them a little bit?
Who's not ever been here before? Okay. Yes, I will. So there's a saying that Mark Houston says, and it is, if you take a thimble to the ocean, you'll get a thimble worth of water. And then how much God do you want? I mean, think about that for yourselves. If you had access to an ocean worth of God, why wouldn't we take advantage of it? Why wouldn't we jump into it? Why wouldn't we take a bucket and get as much as we can? And so if you think of it, and the idea is, what makes me small in accepting God is how much am I willing to be honest about? What am I willing to give up? What are these things I believe about God? What are the things I don't believe? If I empty myself of me, then I make more room for God. And so I highly, just once again, I beg you to please take that step, okay? Any questions? No questions? Anybody have any problems with that second step work? Nobody? Everybody's good? Did we not understand something about it? Everybody gets it? Okay. All right, we're going to do a quick recap. Sammy, I broke the thing. No, I got it. That's all right. Okay, for the guys who wasn't here, the first step, if you got sponsors, he or she would hopefully explain to you what the first step is. The big book on page 30 says we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. It's very difficult to fully concede to your innermost self that you're an alcoholic, especially if you don't really know what it is. And that was my dilemma, and I think that may be one of the biggest dilemmas in Alcoholics Anonymous today, is a lot of people are admitting they're powerless, but they don't know why. And just like me, we are admitting we're powerless based on our outside circumstances. Now, outside circumstances will surely point us in the right direction, or I might have needed every single consequence I ever got, but it's not what makes me powerless. What makes me powerless is I have a physical allergy, a mental obsession, and a spiritual malady. The physical allergy is that I cannot digest alcohol at the same rate as other people. And when I process alcohol, when I drink it or put it in me in any form, then what happens is my body cannot digest it. My body releases a chemical. That chemical is called acetaldehyde, and I'm not a scientist. That's the most I know. And that chemical goes to my digestive system and helps break down the alcohol, and I pass it. Average human being can digest alcohol at the rate of 1 ounce per hour, and alcoholics, we have a very difficult time processing alcohol. We can't process it at that rate. And so that chemical is released, it starts breaking down the alcohol. The problem is when that chemical passes through my brain, it triggers a craving beyond my mental control. The big book would describe it as a phenomenon of craving, because when Dr. Silkworth wrote that, it was before it could be proved. It's been proved. It's a reality that alcoholics cannot digest alcohol at the same rate as other people. The big book, he also said that we are bodily and mentally different from our fellows. And he said the only thing that we have to suggest is entire abstinence. And then it goes on to say that brings us to a seething cauldron of debate, right? If we know that eating strawberries makes us break out in bumps or something like that, then we simply don't eat strawberries. We don't eat strawberry ice cream or strawberry shortcake or strawberry candy. We just stay away from it because we don't want the bumps. But what makes an alcoholic when they break out in more, which we've always done, in more and more and more and more, all the way till I don't care about my consequences, I don't care about my kids, I don't care about my family, I don't care about nothing, I just want another one. Why would we do it again? It's insane. The big book was described, and our literature say that we're insane. That's because of a mental obsession. The mental obsession is this idea that I cannot think about anything other in my life. The mental obsession and the phenomenal craving are two different things, right? That's why we're trying not to. 10th tradition would say we have no opinion on outside things, but I'm going to have opinion I'm going to let everybody know it's my opinion. Smart recovery and all these different things, they think that they're the same, and they're not. These are two different things, and it's important to know that I cannot develop a phenomenal craving. I have to drink first. This idea that I could be sober for 30 days or 6 months or a year or multiple years or whatever, why would I go back? It's because it's different. It's separate. The mental obsession is, to some degree, my mind is trying to protect me from being miserable on the inside. I don't know why. I don't know brain chemistry or dendrites or what those, I have no idea. Like I said, I'm not a scientist, but to some degree, my mind is capable of, like if I feel something hot, I will pull away. It was just almost an instinct after getting burnt, right? When I have a cut, my body will start to try to heal itself, and so forth and so on. The same thing with my brain. When it knows I'm miserable, and this is to some degree subconscious at some level, when I'm miserable and I'm walking around miserable day in and day out, which is what we're talking about, spiritual malady, when I'm walking around miserable day in and day out, when I'm restless, I'm irritable, I'm discontent, and the trick of the spiritual malady is that most alcoholics, all of us to some degree, have gotten used to being restless, irritable, and discontent. Per the big book says, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They cannot differentiate the true from the false. Meaning, I got used to the spiritual malady. It's normal for me to be restless, irritable, and discontent. I got used to it. So when I got used to it and stuffed down deep inside of me, my brain knows I'm miserable. And it says, Mike, do something. Hook up with her, buy that, go on a trip, do some crazy stuff, blah, blah. And I do all those things, and it doesn't even come close. It doesn't even come close. And then my brain will say, Mike, I know it'll make it go away. And so I will go with a mental obsession. I could be on parole and facing 100 years in prison, the opportunity to lose my children and break my relationships, lose my job and everything. This idea comes in my mind that I need something to make this emptiness go away more than I can think about all these other things in my life. Therefore, it's an obsession. I'm not capable of bringing to my, big book would say, my consciousness with sufficient force the memory and suffering and humiliation of a week or a month ago. And if you've been sober for a while, how long you've been sober, make that ago. 17 years ago. I'm not going to be able to remember it. It's probably never going to work. The consequences of your last drink is never going to be enough to keep you from the next one. It's never going to be enough. So get it out of your head. It's not. It's a lie to some degree with other things in life, like getting burnt. The last time you got burnt will be enough to keep you from getting burned again on purpose. I promise you. But with alcoholism, there's this strange twist and a peculiar mental twist, as our literature would say. What can I do about it? I can't do nothing about the way my body digests alcohol, therefore I'm powerless. There's nothing I can do about the way that my brain is trying to protect me from being miserable, therefore I'm powerless. And I can't even see my spirit. If restlessness, irritable, discontentedness, full of fear, can't make a living, hole in the soul, feeling awkward, feeling strange, feeling apart from everybody, or feeling weird all the time, is my spiritual malady, per the adjectives in the big book, then I can't even see my spirit to do anything about it. So what can I do about it? There's nothing I can do. I'm beat. I'm powerless. That's why we are saying we are powerless. And that's why in the big book says, I have to fully concede to my innermost self that I am alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. If you don't know that, I think God is good and he is full of grace and plenty of grace that we'll never be able to understand or imagine. And I think people do stay sober with willingness to do the work. I have seen that before, but to some degree, I believe that if you are an alcoholic, in my experience, just like the big book would describe, it is vitally important for you to know that information because it's very difficult for you to take your first step because you can't concede to your innermost self the truth. The truth being, that's what makes me alcoholic. If I base my powerlessness on my outside circumstances and how my family's doing and how much money I got in my wallet, I am in trouble. I'm in big trouble. Alcoholism is more powerful than parents' love for their children. There's 1 million kids in children's services all across the world because a mother can't quit drinking. What makes you think that you're more powerful than it? I'm just going to say this, when your sponsor gives you suggestions and stuff like that, do you take them? The problem with sponsors is them suckers are always right? That's the problem with sponsors. And so I can check my first step in my willingness. If my sponsor asks me, if I get suggestion from people, I respect. If I take suggestion, I'm practicing my first step to some degree. Second step, we just talked about it at length. Coming to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. It's extremely difficult to believe that God can restore you to sanity if you have a bunch of trash in between you and him. And trash is them old ideas and them bad beliefs, and maybe you went through some things over a period of time. Maybe you've been sober for a while, and you have had a year or two of managing life, and in them 2 or years, alcoholism slowly but surely started implanting false beliefs. God don't really love me, or this wouldn't happen. See, I got in a car wreck. That proves it. God don't love me. And it just adds up, and to some degree, it gains a stronghold on us. You understand? It gains a stronghold, and a stronghold is just a place where alcoholism is rooted in your spirit. And so the only solution that I know of to overcome that is to redo the work, to have a brand new experience with the program, which is powerful. Thank God I was born in my sobriety to these workshops and to constantly doing the work, because had it not been, I would have never made it through. The crazy thing is, and I'll tell you this, if you're going through the steps again and you start to notice that things are getting a little weird, that things are coming unglued in your life, that things are shaking up, that's how it goes. It's just what happens. When you resubmit to the 12-step process, a lot of times things come undone and come unglued for you, and you lose a little bit of security in what you used to have because you're getting something new. And that's part of the process. I've never really heard of anybody who really went back in to do the work, and they're like, oh, everything is just wonderful all the time. When they say it to me, I know they're lying. I just know, because I've never had that experience. Everything comes on, jobs fail, car breaks down, got to move somewhere else, everything just starts coming apart, right? And in that process of those things coming apart, God gives me something new, which is just a wonderful thing. And so that's that saying, if you take a thimble to the ocean, you'll get a thimble worth of water. How much God do you want? I'm the thimble. I got to empty myself out of all these things, right? This whole process. First is a little inventory in the second step. Next is in our 4 steps, resentments and fears and dishonesty and selfishness. And then the third step, that's where we're at tonight. My experience with the third step, my first experience, and I'll talk about that and we'll talk more about it, is I did my second step. I had a powerful experience at the Mayflower Hotel where I got rid of a lot of those old ideas and false beliefs that drove me. Them old ideas and those beliefs that you have in your mind and in your heart, whether you know it or not, they are driving you. They're driving you. I got free of those. We went up to St. Thomas Hospital. My sponsor read the big book to me, which I'm very grateful for. And he started talking to me about selfishness and self-centeredness. And I bought into that because I tried every single thing in the world that there is to possibly do to get and stay sober, and nothing ever worked. My very best efforts and my greatest intentions and what I wanted to happen, it just didn't work. I inevitably got drunk. And I could see that most of the time I was always worried about me getting out of trouble, me moving ahead in life. It was always about me, Mike, and me. That's all I could think about, and that made sense to me. And so we talked about that selfishness, and the big book is very clear. There's no way to overcome self, especially with yourself. And it says we had to have God's help. And there's a mosaic at St. Thomas Hospital, and if you never got to go there, I'm sorry, because that was a very powerful place, the chapel at St. Thomas Hospital. Anybody can walk in there any day or night, but there's a mosaic. And if you don't know what a mosaic is, it's like a bunch of rocks or something like that that they use to make a picture. And the picture was of the Good Samaritan. And my sponsor told me the story, even though I had read that Good Samaritan a million times. He told me the story of the Good Samaritan, that there was this traveler on the road to Jericho, which was a really rough road, and then you could walk down this road and get robbed, and they'd steal from you, beat you up. It'd be like walking down Copley at 3 a.m. or something like that. And so this guy was walking down the road to Jericho, and they robbed him, and they beat him up, and they took his horse, and they took his clothes, and left him naked on the side of the road. And I don't want to get this wrong, so if I am wrong, I apologize. But a Levite, which is in the Bible, is the priests of the Bible. And the priest walked by, and he seen the guy laying in the road, bloody, suffering, and naked. And instead of him going to help him, he's like, oh, he was afraid for himself, and he went around him and kept going. And then another priest or a rabbi or something like that came walking by and seen his man bloody and disgusting and naked. He looked at him, and instead of stopping to help him, he just walked around him and kept going. And then a Samaritan came walking by. And in the Bible, if you're familiar with it, the Samaritans and the Jews had beef. It'd be like the east side and the west side or something like that, right? They did not like each other. There's a lot of racism in regards to that, and a lot of beliefs. Theological things I don't want to get into, but they just didn't like each other. They stayed away from each other. They hated each other. They couldn't be together ever, right? And the guy who was in that ditch was a Jew. And so the Samaritan, his culture was to never mess with him, just for that reason alone. But the Samaritan came by, and he picked the fella up, and he used his wine, is what the Bible said, and he washed his wounds, and he put him on his horse, and he walked while that man was on his horse to a hotel, which the Bible would call it an inn. And he took him there, and he stayed the night, and the man wasn't better, and so he gave the innkeeper money and said, keep him as long as it takes for him to get better. And if I owe you more money the next time I come, I'll give it to you. And then in this Bible verse, Jesus says, go and do thou in like manner. And he described to me that was what I was doing when I was taking this third step. I was supposed to be, just like the big book would say, I might have to play the Good Samaritan every day if need be. It's pretty difficult for me to be the Good Samaritan, especially if I don't know what it is or why it's referencing it. And that's why. And so I got down on my knees with my sponsor, which I thought was weird, and I was afraid of him. And we prayed the third step prayer together, and when we come up off of the third step, he looked down because he was taller than me and bigger than me, and he pointed his finger in my face, and he said, you're not your own business anymore. And some of the guys, we'd know this because we say it to each other a lot. I just witnessed you give yourself to God. You're no longer allowed to worry about all these plans and designs and manage everything in your life. That's over. Now you are free to be thoughtful of how you may meet other people's needs and to write your fourth step. And that's been the keys to the kingdom, you guys. For me, it's been the keys to you know how I get mine? I get mine by making sure you got yours. No matter what it is. Late at night, a couple dollars, another ride somewhere, whatever it may be. I wasn't talking about you guys. If I am thoughtful, if I can stay in conscious contact with God, and my spiritual condition is decently fit, I will be more interested in you than I am in me. And opportunities will arise on a daily basis of how I can best meet your needs. And if I meet your needs, I somehow, in the spiritual world, all my needs are taken care of, and some. I'm very busy. You can ask the people, ask my wife. It's never a stop. I'm always on the go. I'm always on the phone. I always am going to do something, always. Like it's a lot sometimes. And I'm not complaining about that. I'm grateful that I can be useful in this world finally, that I have purpose. And if I just keep saying yes to God and keep saying yes to you, He makes time for me to enjoy life. Even my time, where I get to go fishing or get to go hunting or ride my motorcycle or take some people out on the boat or go on vacations or whatever that happens, God makes that possible for me. And if I sat at home and tried to manage my time, I wouldn't have time for nothing. And the first thing I would get rid of in trying to manage my time would be AA and God. Most of the time when guys, they're sober for a while, they start getting overwhelmed. And when they come and say, man, I'm overwhelmed, what they're really saying is, I need to cut back on my AA a little bit. That's what they really are saying, almost every time. They're just saying in code word, right? And so that same exact thing happened to me, and I was with my sponsor, and he said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to kick up your meetings even more. And I'm like, what do you mean? I just told you I couldn't handle another damn thing. And he said, add 2 more meetings to your weekly schedule. And I just did it because I just wanted to stay sober. And what I found was that by adding more AA in my life, what I actually was doing is add more God in my life. And as I put that first even more, the rest of my life balances itself. As soon as I take my eyes off of God and the solution, what will happen inevitably is I will focus on the problems. If you took a piece of paper and you listed all your problems on one side, family, friends, money, job, blah, 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 blah. And on the other sheet of paper, you wrote down all the solutions, God, meetings, step work, sponsorship, picking people up, whatever it may be for you. If you just tear away the problems and put them to the side and you start focusing on the solution, the problems will take care of themselves. It's very spiritual. We all got responsibilities, but that's been my experience over and over. And a lot of times, I'm grateful for some of the bottoms in my sobriety. I'm even grateful for the basement that I got sober in, because some people didn't get sober in the basement. And I see the people who got sober, and I'm not saying this to dequalify anybody or declassify anything or declassify myself, but I see that because things were so very bad, and I cried out to God in almost death. And He answered me and showed up in a mighty way. And because of that, I think I have an edge. I think that in my sobriety, I've gotten an edge because of how bad it was. Where some people, it takes their hard time with their second step, their hard time believing. God showed up to me very fast and very real and very powerful. And so, but the problem is those bottoms that I had while I was drinking and getting high and stuff, we have them bottoms sober. There's a lot of, the suicide rate for alcoholics is 70% higher than the rest of the people. 70%. It's extreme. I've known people who committed suicide in Alcoholics Anonymous in my years of sobriety. So what happens sometimes is this is my experience. God took the desire to drink away from me. I ain't never had it back. I've been through broken bones and broken relationships and heartbroken and pain and, you name it, I've been through it sober. My sponsor said I was like a Neil Young song. God took the desire to drink away, and so when life has gotten heavy for me, and when I start managing things again, what happens for me is I think about, what comes to my mind? Suicide. I can't drink, I can't make it go away. God took that from me. And so what else can I do? Like, these things seem overwhelming. These problems in life are too much to bear, and I can't even drink. What is my solution? I might as well just end it all. That's what comes in my mind. I get these imaginations of suicide. I haven't had that in quite a while, but I've not had the desire to drink again. And so sometimes I heard a guy this week say, it's driving me to drink. I said, no, it ain't. No, it ain't. That's not true. But we relapse. And so I guess, in light of hanging yourself or shooting yourself, relapse is better, but to drink is to die. And there's a lot of death. There's a lot of deaths that become before the physical death. Death of my family, death of my job, death of my hobbies, death of my peace, death of my joy, death of my happiness, death of my ability to be helpful to other people, be thoughtful to them. All these deaths occur in my sobriety, right, until there'll be no more death left except for physical death. And there's been times where I've been very depressed sober as a result of not doing the things I was supposed to do. And one time, I was in I had lived down the street, and on the second floor, I just moved in this place, and got custody of my little girl. You would think that I would be happy. I had a lot to be grateful for, but I wasn't focused on none of it. I got boxes everywhere in my house, and I just can't take it. Boxes of clothes and boxes of this and dishes, and it was like, oh, I just can't take it. And I remember getting in the fetal position, and I was on the second floor in the hallway, and I was in the fetal position, and I just was it. God, please help me. And someone come knocking on my damn door. There's a lady from Bible study. It's the weirdest thing. I just come to see how you're doing if you need any help. And I went, oh, blessed. I lost it. It's terrible. I can't take it. Blah, 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 blah. But even in that scenario, God was with me then. You see? And he showed himself to me then, which makes it easier for me. And so a lot of times I ask guys when they get in that same situation, I ask them to write gratitude lists. If I'm to surrender to God, it's easier for me to surrender to a God that I'm aware of. And how I get aware of God is a lot of times through gratitude. If I'm grateful for my big book and my toilet paper and my windshield wipers and the gas in my car and the clothes on my back and toothpaste and all these electric and hot water and healthy children and all, if I start thinking about, wow, man, all these things are working out somehow, then I can see the goodness of God and it makes it easier for me to surrender to him more. There's a purpose in it. You know what I mean? They don't listen sometimes, but I still tell them. Okay, this exercise, if you look at page 62,
Yes.
Go ahead, Mike.
I got a question. I'm definitely, I mean, that's my experience right now, right? Going back to the steps, super weird, super manager of my own life, trying to control everything again, and just got real weird, right? So, but in my second step, man, like these prejudices that I have, there's resentment tied into that, right? You know what I mean? There just is. I mean, it's just the way it is. So, I guess my question is like, if I'm resentful, and I'm gonna, I don't mean, if I'm resentful with some of these prejudices, how am I really gonna take a third step and offer myself to God when I'm mad at him?
Well, was it never asked to take an inventory of your resentments in your second step? You were just asked to write down.
That's what I
hold on a
know.
minute. Hold on. You were just simply asked to do. You're just supposed to do what it says. Write down the things you believe about God. Write down the things you don't believe about God. You might have resentments. I mean, that's totally true. But that's not where you're at yet. Your job is to go read those things to God.
Right, yeah, and that's cool. I was just saying, like, do you see what I'm saying, though? Like, I noticed in my prejudices that I was resentful at things.
Well, there's a step for that. It's fine.
I'm just confused how I'm supposed to turn over my will and my
The problem is that you're talking about resentments, and it's the noose around your neck. Everything you already know is killing you. You're the example, you're the prime example of when we know stuff, and we have spiritual tools and principles, and my alcoholism starts wrapping itself around that again and using it against me. That's exactly the description of that. Just be where you're at. You're not doing that bad. You're doing good.
I'm fucking miserable, man. And that's the truth. I'm fucking miserable. And, like, I don't know if it's because I'm going back to the steps, but...
When we manage, we damage. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
I mean, that's like my natural, normal reaction is to try to manage, you know what I mean? And it's like I try to manage it until it's just so painful, you know what I mean? It's like the only way that I let go is like this unbearingly amount of like pain, you know what I mean? It's insane.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I just thought maybe it would.
Well, good. So hopefully,
it doesn't feel good.
that's okay. But maybe when a lot of people that have an Alcoholics Anonymous, you'll be lucky if you have those surrenders where you just say, I'm just done with everything. I don't care no more. I don't care about the job or the car. I'm just done. And God, take it all, because I just can't take it no more. And a lot of times we got to get to that place for that to happen. That's a good thing.
Beaten into a state of reasonableness.
Beaten into a state of reasonable. We've got a couple of hands and we're going to move on.
What helped me was we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we always had. Or to simply put, I can't fix myself with my own sick thinking. Hence why these steps, as outlined in the book, in order, allow me to ask for help. I used to hate asking for help because I thought I'd be Mr. Independent, do it myself. You know, the DIY. What I found out was when I was doing it myself, I sponsored myself, I failed miserably. But once I asked another man for guidance and help, what I found out was, and like what you were talking about earlier, what helps me, not just with my recovery, but with all that other stuff, is I have a therapist, I have a psychiatrist. I'm not ashamed of that. Why? Because in order for me to be healthy, I have to fix the entire me, inside and out, not just my alcoholism, but the other stuff too. And if anybody can relate to that, hey, more power to you.
Thanks, Chris. I want to just real quick before anybody, it's not an appropriate time to try to fix Mike. Okay?
Yeah, good luck.
Okay? It's not appropriate. It's not what we're here for. Mike's got a sponsor and a home group, and he got plenty of people. So thanks for being honest.
I'm just keeping it.
No, I appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay, let's go. 62. Okay, selfish. Now this is what my sponsor had me to do. Make this personal. Put your own name in this reading. Selfishness and self-centeredness. That, I think, is the root of my troubles. Or I could use my name. Selfishness, self-centeredness. That, I think, is the root of Mike's troubles. Mike is driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. Mike steps on the toes of his fellows, and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt Mike, seemingly without provocation. But Mike invariably finds that sometime in the past, Mike has made decisions based on himself, which later placed Mike in a position to be hurt. So if you read these 2 pages with your name in it, it will certainly change your perception of it. It's a very powerful, I know Corey's done, I know everybody that I've probably sponsored has done that at least once. So if you take a look at that in that perspective, it will come to life more for you. So Mike's troubles, he thinks, are basically of his own making. They arise out of Mike. And Mike is an extreme example of self-will run riot. Though Mike usually don't think so. Above everything, Mike must be rid of this selfishness. Mike must, or it kills him. God makes that possible. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them, even though Mike would have liked to. Neither could Mike reduce his self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on his own power. Mike had to have God's help. And so another thing that we do, that was common for us, is that, especially when we're early sober, we don't mean to do it, but we do it, all of us, is that we come here, we're busted and disgusted, and we get to this third step and we're like, we don't got nothing going on. We live in sober houses, we're alone, we're in a rehab center, we're not been sober long enough to accumulate much life stuff. So when we go to this third step, and it's asking us to turn my will and my life over to God, which is my life and what's my thoughts and my actions, all I'm turning really over at that time in my life is my sobriety. God, you can have my sobriety, I'm so sick of it. But you can't have her, and you can't have the car. I'm going to manage that. And you can't have my money, and you can't have my job, and I want to do this for fun, and I don't want to go to work 5 days a week. You can have everything in my life except this or this and that. And when you're brand new sober, the most you really are thinking about surrendering is your sobriety. But as you stay sober and in the presence of God, you do have a life that's more abundant, and things will accumulate. And a lot of times you'll hear me say, I bring my old ideas to my newest experience, and that's exactly what I mean, is I'm not used to having to turn a new thing over to God. I thought I did it, but I really didn't. When I got my first car, I tell you guys, I was afraid, so I laid hands on the hood and gave it to God. And then I went and picked up some guys at the damn sober at IBH. I knew for sure that my way was doomed, but there's different things, relationships and amounts of money and these other areas of my life that I accumulated as a result of sobriety that I didn't turn over. God, you can have my sobriety and I gave you my car, but you can't have Amaya. You can't have my little girl, God. I need to protect her and keep her safe and watch out for her and blah, blah, blah. And guess what happened? It about drove me crazy. About drove me crazy. And so eventually I got to a place where I had to offer I prayed that prayer. God, I offer Amaya to you to build with and do with as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Probably the hardest prayer I've ever prayed in my life. But I got free. God's way is better. Marriage, relationships, and responsibilities, and what people think of me, and wanting to fit in, and wanting to be approved of, and all those different things that come up in sobriety, that's my will in my life. And so you can ask yourself, no matter how long you've been sober, what haven't you given to God? What haven't you given to God? And to some degree, it goes right along with what Bill was talking about when we make a list of just 5 things in the last 2 weeks that I've been unwilling to give up for a better relationship with God. Facebook time, threads, reels, sleep. Time is always on there every single time. What about my kids, my husband, my wife, whatever it may be, this new house I got, my new relationship? You can look back in your 2 weeks and see if you've been unwilling to give it up. If it's the relationship or the car, the money or the kids, you can easily see if it's more important than your relationship with God. Easily see that. And so you just put it down there and be honest with God about it. God is loving and graceful, and he wants to help us. He's very tender. And so as we go along and we get into our 11th step, after we do our nightly reviews, it has 2 questions. And we'll talk more about that when we get there, but this comes up tonight because it asks us to do 2 things. It says we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures need to be taken. In them prayers, especially, God, what corrective measures need to be taken? What I've seen in that prayer is the character of God in a way like I would never, ever be able to see it in any other way. Because what happens is I blow it throughout the day. Things come up. I'm selfish. I'm dishonest. I'm fearful. I wasn't packing into the stream of life. I was thinking about myself most of the day. And then I come to God at the night and I'm looking at all these things and I say, God, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to be mean at the lady at the gas station. And I say, what corrective measures need to be taken? And I pray it and I mean it. And what happens is I get to see in my best articulation of it is God holds my hand and walks me back into a way to make it right, which is overwhelming. And sometimes he just does it for me. And so I'm telling you, if we really knew how much God loved us, it would blow our minds. If we really knew how much he thought of us and how much he wants to be with us, it would just, it's a lot. This is the how and the why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. These are like in the handout I gave you guys. If you didn't get these, they're up here. Oh, I asked you specifically. So the concepts at the bottom consider the concept in the bottom of page 62, which is this. Are you willing to quit playing God? Have you had enough? I don't care if you've been sober for a day or a year or 10 years. Are you ready to quit playing God? Because it didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter, the drama of life, God was going to be our director. Are you willing to let God be your director? He is the principal. We are his agents. Are you willing to be an agent for God? He is the Father, and we are his children. Are you able to accept those concepts? That's the 3rd step. Realizing that of myself, I'm nothing. The big book would say the Father doeth the works. That when I manage, I damage. Am I convinced of those things? Am I convinced that when I run life, or I get away from my spiritual condition, I start to manage things in my life and it seems to just burn up. And I do it over and over again. And so we come to this place where we say, oh yeah, that's exactly me. I'm managing my life again. I'm trying to do all these cool things. Maybe the things you're trying to do are very good. And Aaron testified, me and him had several talks about this. I could have the most wonderful idea about what would be good for Mike. And I could think it up, and it could be just a wonderful thing, and I'll try it, and I'll try it, and I'll try it, and it'll burn up, and it'll burn up, and it'll burn up, and I call my sponsor, I say, what should I do? And he'll tell me the exact same thing I thought to do, but because he told me to do it, it'll start to work. That's happened to me over and over and over. My way is just, it just don't work. It just burns up. And all of us, none of us, this is a journey. We're all going to experience those things sober. You're going to experience some bottoms will be big, some bottoms will be smaller. You're going to experience those things sober. You're an alcoholic. You've been used to living life very impulsively, doing what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it, and so forth and so on. And if you walked in the woods, if you were drinking or getting high for 20 years or 10 years, if you walked in the woods 10 or 20 years, you don't come out of the woods in a couple weeks. If you walk in the woods for 20 years, it takes probably about 20 years to get out of the babies. The good news is, the big book says, we're rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence. So I do believe that God hurries up the process, but it's still a process. It's still a process. Imagine what would it look like today at 8 o'clock if all of us were drinking and getting high, and we all met here together for some weird damn reason. It would be insane. It would be literally crazy. If everybody walked in here in their throes of their alcoholism, and we somehow ended up in this room together, what would that be like? You guys, I'm serious, it would be insane. It would be insane. We're looking for stuff to steal, people would be fighting, somebody fall in love, all kinds of weird stuff will happen in here. And so the miracle, oh my gosh, the miracle that we're all here sober today is overwhelming. It's overwhelming. So, any questions in regards to the third step? I really want to just emphasize again and encourage you to do your second steps. Read your letters to God. It's very important. See how God responds. See how give God a chance. Give him an opportunity to respond to some of the things that you believe and some of the things you don't believe and some of the prejudices you have. Give him a chance. Give him an opportunity to respond. I'll read. I got one reading and two here I wanted to read. We're going to go to the chapel and do our third steps. Let's examine for a moment the idea of dependence at the level of everyday living. Meaning, not just dependence on God for my sobriety, which a lot of us will fall for, but depending on God for everything. In this area, it is starting to discover how dependent we really are and how unconscious of that dependence. Every modern house has electric wiring carrying power and light to its interior. We are delighted with this dependence. Everybody got electric? You just turn on the lights, you don't even think about it. Our main hope is that nothing will ever cut off the supply of current. By so accepting our dependence upon this marvel of science, we find ourselves more independent personally. You get that? By so accepting our dependence upon this marvel of science, we find ourselves more independent personally. Not only are we more independent, we are even more comfortable and secure. Power flows just where it is needed. Silently and surely, electricity, that strange energy so few people understand, meets our simplest daily needs, and our most desperate ones too. And so, to some degree, we're all very dependent on something. A lot of us, we're dependent on our own thinking. We're dependent on my ability, I'm dependent on my reasoning. And we understand that. If you've been drinking and getting high, and you were in the jails and in the bars, and you was on them streets and in them basements and all them places, you had to rely on yourself because nobody else was going to do it for you. You had to have some kind of self-preservation in that deal, and you come to be dependent on your own reasoning. And in Bill's story, it says, like a boomerang, it all but cut me to pieces. Meaning, the tools that we lived by before, they quit working when you're trying to live a spiritual life. The tools don't work anymore. So you got to get some new tools. And we got to get some new tools. And we got to get some new tools. over and over again. When I try to, if my transmission goes out on my truck, it'd be like me having transmission problems and going and buying windshield wipers. That's my management. When I try to fix my problems, that's always what it seems like ends up happening. I'm picking fruit instead of dealing with the root. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I want to read this to you. It is when we try to make our will conform with God's will that we begin to use it rightly. To all of us, this was a most wonderful revelation. Our whole trouble had been the misuse of willpower. We had tried to bombard our problems with it instead of attempting to bring it into agreement with God's intention for us. The 10th step in our big book says the proper use of the will. God gave us a will to use. I believe that our will best served is by using our will to pursue God. Through step work, through spiritual disciplines, through taking action, through helping others. It's our best use of the will instead of using our will to manipulate our way through life. To make this increasingly possible, it is the purpose of AA's 12 steps, and step 3 opens the door. It's an amazing, overwhelming thing when we line our will up with God's will. And the only way that we know how to line our will up with God's will is to give ourselves to God. To turn my thoughts and my actions, my will and my life over to God as best as I possibly can right now. On a day-to-time basis, for the rest of my life. And as I line my will up with God's will, amazing things happen. Meaning I'm going to do my 4th step. I'm going to take the rest of the steps. I'm going to follow through with this process. And I cannot tell you the amount of times, it's uncountable, the amount of times that people have come and thanked me for things I don't remember doing. There's no greater joy. When I see a guy that I sponsor and he's doing his talk and he's doing a lead, and I'm like, oh, I remember that, and I know that God used me in a small way to help that person, it's overwhelming. I'm not attached to the fruits of my labor. I don't think I'm keeping anybody sober. I'm just showing them, I'm a blind beggar showing another beggar where the bread's at. And to be able to do that there's no greater thing.
So early on in my recovery, I struggled with knowing what was the difference. How do I know when I'm being that person to be able to let and wanting it worse than everybody else? And how do I know when I'm doing that? What would that look like to me?
So an easy way, we are lucky in the Akron, Cleveland area because we have this pamphlet called the 4 Absolutes. Honesty, unselfishness, purity, and love. If you have a decision that you need to make or there's something going on, if it passes through all 4 of those, you're good to go. If it don't, you ain't. But we're talking a little bit further down the line in the 11th step, it says this. Being still new, you may pay for these ideas with absurd actions and ideas. And I'm misquoting it. Being still inexperienced at the spiritual way of life. Being still inexperienced at relying on God, meaning you've been getting high and drunk for 20 years and all of a sudden you're a year or 2 sober, you think you got it by the balls and you don't. The big book is very clear. Being still inexperienced, we may pay for these ideas and assumptions with all kind of absurd actions and ideas. Meaning, I'll give you an easy one. I was in a relationship and it was bad. And I'd go in the bathroom and I'd pray, God, what do you want me to do? This sucks so bad. It was terrible. And guess what? Guess what my selfish mind said? Marry her. And I was like, because that's what I wanted. I wanted this to work out. I didn't want to deal with the emotions. So in the early days in Alcoholics Anonymous, they got people through the steps extremely quickly. Like they'd meet a new guy and they would start taking them through the steps as quickly as possible. So on that same day, they would describe alcoholism to them. They'd make sure that they were capable of believing in the power of grace and self can restore you, and they would make them get down on their knees right then and there in front of them and pray this 3rd step prayer. Give your life to God now. And then make them do it just like that. Now things have evolved and it's 2026. It's quite different, but essentially we're doing the same thing. And so because there's such a great cloud of witnesses, you're giving yourself to God in front of a ton of people. And so when you come up off of this prayer, it's going to be no different. You're not your own business anymore. So we're going to take a little bit of silence time. I want you to think about all the things that you've been managing, all the ways it didn't work, it's always failed before. Maybe you got something current going on. Maybe it's your first time doing this. I want you to really try as your very best to say, I'm done playing God. God's going to be my father. I'm going to be his agent. I'm sick of my way. Anything's better than what I got going on. My family's falling apart. I'm shucking and jiving here and there, and the money's funny. I'm just done. And so we take this time to give our will, our thoughts, and our actions to God. And so what we'll do is, after a moment of silence, I know some people don't have the prayer memorized, so I'll pray a line, and then you guys don't just say it after me, but pray it after me, please, okay? God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me, and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Yeah. All right, guys, I'm Mike. I'm an alcoholic. You guys mind if I read you a religious reading? Every one of you, you've got an advocate in heaven. Every one of you, you've got an advocate in heaven, but you've got an accuser on earth. And you could think of that as your alcoholism. And what the Bible says is that this world that you live in is lorded over by the father of lies. And the number one lie the enemy wants you to believe is that you are your activity. That what you did is who you are. That's the number one lie he wants you to believe. So listen, I just want to tell you something. Only Jesus gets to tell you who you are. Nobody else gets to do that. Only God has purchased the naming rights to your soul with his own blood. Only Jesus gets to tell you who you are. So listen to me. You are not your addiction. You are a child of the living God. You are not your past, no matter how bad it was, no matter what you did. You're not your past. You are not your sins. No matter how deep the transgressions, you're not your sin. You are not your orientation. And I know you got a million people in your life telling you what you should and shouldn't be doing with that part of your life. But you are not your orientation. You are not your affair. You are not your abortion. You are not your divorce. And I know that you may look at me and say, yeah, but that's the biggest thing that's ever happened in my life. No, it isn't. Jesus dying on the cross for you is the biggest thing that's ever happened in your life. That's what defines you and nothing else. God said it is finished. You are not your obesity. You are not your bankruptcy. You are not the rape that happened to you. Only God gets to tell you who you are. And you're not your success. You are not your 401k. You are not your position on the corporate ladder. You are not your Instagram likes. Only God gets to tell you who you are. And what he has declared is that every second of your life, that's a banner over your head, and it reads, "It is finished, adopted child of the living God, and you are beloved." And that's the juice. And so whatever you believe, I know this is God of your own understanding, and I don't want to offend anybody, and you can use whatever name of God you want in that, but I believe that to be true for every one of us. Lastly, before we have Sammy come up here and do our third tradition, which is vitally important, I gave everybody this 4-step handout. So what I want you to do this week, obviously do your second steps. Please do that. It'll take you no time at all. But make a list of your resentments. All of them. Mom, Dad, Uncle Bob, third grade teacher, Uncle Joe. Make a list of your resentments. Do that first. Pray. Then when you get those resentments done, I want you to write these out one at a time, not one column at a time. I want you to write, I'm resentful at my mom. It says the cause, in 16 words or less, write down why you're resentful at your mom. The third column is what might be a little bit different for you, maybe something different than you're familiar with. It's going to take the third column and it's going to elaborate on that because it's vital for us to see how powerful our alcoholism is kicking our butt. So in the question it says, in the big book it says, has it affected my self-esteem, my pocketbooks, my emotional security, blah, blah, blah. In this third column, it's going to just take you a little bit deeper. It's going to ask you some questions. It's going to say, most every single resentment you have is going to, all of these will be affected except for two. Sex and money. Them two might or might not be affected by your resentment, but self-esteem will always be. So it's going to ask you, what role are you playing? And you're going to find that almost inevitably, most of the time, the role you're playing in any given resentment is you're playing the role of the victim. Almost always. I hope you see that pattern in your life. And here I want you to know something. Victims never recover. Victims never get better. When I'm a victim of something that you've done, what happens is I'm waiting for you to change for me to get better. Victims, no matter what you've been through, no matter what crisis or tragedy, you don't have to stay a victim. Most of the time, in every resentment, you're going to be playing the role of the victim. You could be playing different roles, and you'll see them as you do them. Write it down. Then it's going to say this. Who do I think I am? The question is in direct proportion to that resentment, and it has to do with your self-esteem. Most of the time, my ego wants to tell me one or two things. You're a piece of shit. You're worthless nothing. Look at you. And it wants to say that to me. Or it says, oh, you're way better than them. You're awesome. You're so much cooler than they are. Who cares about them anyway? It wants me to think I'm way better than you, or it wants me to think I'm way worse than you. One of the two. And the truth is, you're not either. We're all spokes in the wheel, okay? But most of the time for me, it's always, oh, you're a piece of crap. Who do I think I am? Resentful at my mom because she did this. I'm playing the role of the victim. It must be because I'm just not worthy. I just don't deserve it. Financial security, if it has to do with it, how's your money hurt or threatened? It's a simple question. Emotional security. What do I think I need to be emotionally secure? Write it down. What I think I need to be emotionally secure is for my mom to be a good mom. For my mom to love me or whatever. All right, I'm just giving you one on top of my head. Ambitions. What do I want from my mom? What I want from my mom is whatever. Just be honest. I know we're perfect. We're great at giving right answers. I don't care about right answers. We care about the truth. What am I trying to get? I'm trying to get some identity. I'm trying to get a sense of belonging. I'm trying to get what I'm really trying to get. Then it's going to give you another one. What's my hidden agenda? My hidden agenda is if I blame my mom, I ain't got to take no responsibility for my own life. There's always a hidden agenda. Personal relations. How does this affect my relations with my mom? Terribly. This affects my relations with my mom poor. I don't even talk to her. With others, a lot of times it's going to be poor as well. It affects my relations with other people. I'm resentful of my mom. I play the victim, blah, blah, blah. Most of the time it's very poor. Every once in a while, it affects my relations good with maybe my sponsor because I'm being honest with them about it. Then sex. Okay? I do not want you, see this says down there at the fear thing? Don't do that yet. Well, next week we're going to talk about fear. Okay? Next week we'll recap on this resentment inventory and we're going to talk about fear. If you've never written a 4-step before, my guess is you're going to have a ton of things to write about. So if that's the case for you, we can't hold you accountable. We want you to hurry up and do it. We think you should hurry up and do it. The big book says, we sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. You go to some other meeting, some other place, they're going to tell you to take your time, and I'm telling you right now, they're lying to you. Do not take your time. It's a lie. Do not take your time. It's a lie. Alcoholism is trying to kill you. Do not take your time. Hurry up and do this. We sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. It cannot wait another day. It cannot wait till next week. Okay? We're going to talk about that fear, and we're going to talk about how it relates to the 7 deadly sins. We'll talk about that next week. Any questions in regard to this 4th step? I'm going to give you some more information. If you need to talk to somebody, we'll talk about it. But now, Sammy's going to come up here and do our 3rd tradition. Oh, I'm sorry. Good. 4th column, most important column, is give you some questions. Where have I been? So the big book says, putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done to us, we resolutely looked for our own mistakes. Meaning, I put everything my mom ever did to me out of my mind, and I looked for everything I ever did wrong to her. I lied to my mom. I cheated my mom. I stole out her purse. I made her worry in the middle of the night when I was gone and put money on my books when I was in jail. It's going to give you some columns. Selfish. It's mine and you can't have it. Where have I been selfish with my mom? Dishonest. Where have I been dishonest with my mom? Self-seeking. It's yours and I want it. Where have I been self-seeking? Fill these things out. Frightened. What was my fear? I was frightened at whatever. Write it down. And then it says, where was I to blame? If you can't find out where to put some of the wrongs you've done to your mom in those 4 things, it gives you a blanket. And it says this, where was I to blame? Whatever it may be. I was rebellious and dishonest, and I lied, and I stole. I was extremely inconsiderate. I never thought ever what it was like for her, blah, blah, blah. Right? Is that right, Bill? That was your question? Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. All right, Sammy.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date's July 18th, 2018, and I am grateful to have been asked to speak on Tradition 3. The short form of Tradition 3 is the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. And the long form is our membership ought to include all who suffer from alcoholism. Hence, we may refuse none who wish to recover. Nor ought AA membership ever depend upon money or conformity. Any 2 or 3 alcoholics gathered together for sobriety may call themselves an AA group, provided that, as a group, they have no other affiliations. So, I've been pretty sick today. Didn't really prepare too much. But when I think about this tradition, I think about when I very first got sober. I was sitting in an AA meeting with the first woman who sponsored me. And there was a person there who was very evidently under the influence. And I looked at her and I said, how come he is allowed to be in this meeting right now? Why are we letting him sit in here? And she said, she almost ripped my head off, but she was like, Sammy, the only desire for membership or the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. And she said it in a way that made me afraid of her, which was hard to do. But it also got me to reflect. And then after the meeting, she had some learning lessons with me about staying in my own lane, and explained to me that I am not the gatekeeper of AA. I don't get to decide who comes into these rooms, and I'm not judge, jury, and executioner over here, right? And so it changed my perspective instantly, and I started to look at people in a more compassionate and loving way, even though at that time for me too, I was very much full of anger, hate, and really what it was I was resentful of this person, right? I was jealous of them because I wanted to be them, and I was just so miserable where I was at. So, over the years and as I've learned more about AA and I see a lot of people come in and people go back out and everything, I understand the importance of this step, you know, allowing people to have a seat here based on their desire for it. And that is the only requirement, right? And I'm very grateful too that people didn't push me out of the rooms when I came back in, right? And I think sometimes it can often get frustrating for people who are in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, but we have to offer them the same grace and mercy and love and compassion that was so freely offered to us, right? When we came in here. When I take that to a deeper level, and I'm doing this in my sponsorship work, you know, I have a responsibility to also take them through this book, right? That's a sponsor's job. But in that, and through this tradition, what I have to do is I take them through the book and I help them define what alcoholism is, explaining every time I'm on the mic, thank you, the physical allergy, the mental obsession, and the spiritual malady, right? Explaining that to them and helping them understand and define for themselves if they are an alcoholic. Because again, as a sponsor, I don't get to decide whether they qualify for a seat in this room, right? So I help them figure it out. And sometimes that may mean that they're not a real alcoholic, but I do them a disservice when I just ask them to check the box, like we kind of talked about at the beginning, right? We're of course we're going to say we're willing, right? We're not dumb. We know what the right answer is, right? You know, so it's walking them through that that piece of understanding alcoholism. In my life at home and in work and in my friendships and other relationships, you know, how do I practice this, right? You know, my kids, like when I think about this, I'm like, my kids are a member of my family whether they desire it or not. You know, they were born into this. And, you know, but I need to treat them as if, like I have to remember my kids, like they desire to do right. They desire to do good. The same as I desire to do well and please God, right? And so I still have to remember to meet my kids with grace and mercy and love, right? I can't gatekeep, you know, maybe they're video games, but not like love and affection just because they disappointed me, you know? And in work, you know, it's kind of the same concept, right? How am I leading people in work? Am I leading from a place of love, right? Am I understanding that the fact that they showed up to work today shows that they have a desire to be willing to be there in that seat at work, right? And again, not pushing them out because they, you know, maybe made a mistake or whatever it is. In my home group and stuff, and what I love about our home group is that we do really take a focus on the new person, right? And people who are coming back, and we get our claws into them as soon as we can, in the best way possible. But you know, like we have responsibilities as active home group members to go to that new person who's sitting in that seat, right? Because like, they come in here, they don't feel welcome, they can go back out and die. Because it is. To drink is to die, right? And so this is life or death. And do I want my bad mood, my selfishness, and my self-centeredness to get in the way of making a person feel isolated and alone and scared more than they already are, right? When all it takes is a hello sometimes, right, to get a person to stay. Also, as a home group member, too, it's whether I end up sponsoring a person or not, it's guiding them to people who can sponsor them, right? That's our responsibility as a group. And, you know, for me, the focus tonight was really on desire, that desire piece of it, because, you know, God didn't make me prove myself to come in here, and AA doesn't make me prove myself to earn that seat. I don't have to call my sponsor every day before she'll say she'll actually sponsor me. There's no test. It's my desire to be willing, and that was really the focus for me. And that's all I've got tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. Okay, remember, do your second steps. Please do that. And also remember that everybody watched you give yourself to God. So Ann Graham Lotz was Billy Graham's daughter. It was, for a time, they wore these bracelets, and it said, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do is what that thing. And so you could ask yourself through the day, what would God have me do? And to some degree, it's really simply said, do the next right thing. Do the next right thing. Right? And so that's what we're accountable. And write your 4 steps. Cool? Let's pray it out. Sir. Our Father,